Nolan King here for MMA Today in Utica, New York, and I am joined by MMA featherweight slash bantamweight, flyweight anymore? No more flyweight.
No more flyweight
Askar. Thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate it. Askar is out here. He's cornering Bilal Muhammad this weekend. How's Utica treating you so far, man? I saw Bilal's tweet. He was a little upset about that.
Utica's, I wouldn't say there's anything fun to do here really, other than walk around and look at the old town and see how it used to be back in the day. It seemed like it was there was a lot happening here, but it seemed like it slowed down a lot since back in the day. But I mean, we're focused on the fight. We're focused on Bilal winning, so that's the most important thing right now. So it doesn't matter where we are, as long as we just come get a win and go home.
Right, this isn't a vacation. This is you guys have some serious work.
That's one thing. Even Lewis Taylor always says, like, we come here, we can't treat this like we're having fun and we're going out. Like they want to go karting or they want to go playing, they'll go to Denny's even and eat. But like, we got to chillax. We got to focus on the task at hand. Bilal has to get his win, and then we'll worry about everything else after.
Awesome. We'll get to his fight in a little bit, but I want to talk about you a little bit. With MMA Today, we try to focus on a lot of prospects, up-and-comers. You're somebody that's been circled on my list for a while, bantamweight, featherweight, somebody that next couple of years you'll probably I'll go out on a limb and say you'll be in the UFC in a few years with the way things have been going. And, I want to take you way back to when you were a little kid. You were born in Palestine, correct? And when did you move to the U.S.?
I moved to the U.S. when I was, I want to say, 7 or 8 years old. We moved here. I remember the first time we moved here. I always tell everybody the story. I'm like, the first thing that shocked me, the biggest difference, like that I noticed from here and there, was the lights. Like there was so much lights, street lights, flashing lights, McDonald's, White Castle, all these signs I saw. Walmart, everything was just so new to me. I was so surprised as a kid, and I remember walking into the apartment we were living in as kids, and my mom and dad, and then my one sister and 2 brothers, and we walk into the apartment and my dad goes, "This is our home." And back in Palestine, we were living, we had a decent amount of money, so we were living in a pretty decent house. It was pretty big. So we walk into the apartment, I thought the whole thing was ours. I started knocking on every door, like knocking on every door. My dad's looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "These aren't all our rooms?" He's like, "No." He's like, "We live in this." I'm like, "We live in a closet?" I'm like, "What is this?" And he goes, "No, this is how it is here." I'm like, he's like, "We have to work our way up." So when he said that, I remember him telling us like we have to work and we have to, work hard for what we want to get. That always like stuck into me. Though I was like, this is where we start. It doesn't matter where where we're starting. It just matters where we're ending. So that was the first time I've been here, and it was pretty exciting.
Absolutely, man. And was it tough growing up at all, being from another country? Here with all these people that probably grew up in America.
Of course, it was a little hard. Yeah. The biggest thing was learning and speaking English. You know what I mean? I feel like I got a lot better now, especially losing my accent that I had. But that was the hardest thing. Opposite of Mackenzie Dern, she's trying to get it back. I'm over here trying to lose it. But that was one of the biggest things with school. Like it was kind of nerve-wracking to go and meet people that I didn't really understand what they were saying. And it was like even the first day of school, I go to school, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what class was. Or even at the end of the school day when they were like, "Okay, you go home," I was like, "How do I leave? I don't know where the front door is."
Yeah.
Like, it was pretty confusing. But after a lot of TV, watching a lot of TV, learning English and speaking it, and my mom making sure that the language we were speaking at home wasn't Arabic, it was more English, so we could get the hang of it. In time we built it up, and we were able to be where we are today.
Absolutely, man. And you're doing big things here. You're 7-0 as a pro MMA fighter. You had a pretty solid amateur career as well. How did you get into MMA? What kicked off your career? Going down this path.
I was in high school. I think I was like 14 or 15 years old, and I was having, obviously everybody in high school has trouble with bullies and this and that, and I was having a little bit of trouble with bullying when I was a kid. And my dad came up to me and he was like, "Maybe it's time for you to do some martial arts." Back in the day, everybody always talks about how they were doing taekwondo or kung fu and they were a black belt. So my dad was one of those guys. He was on that, "I was a taekwondo black belt, you need to do it." But he couldn't even get his leg past his waist. So I'm like, "Okay, we'll try taekwondo." So he enrolled us in this school, and I personally hated it. It was too much traditional gi. Learn these forms that don't really work in street fights and stuff and like that. And I'm like, I didn't like this. And it all happened by chance. One day my mom and dad couldn't pick, it was me and my little brother, Asif. He's an MMA fighter too. We were actually stuck at the academy for an extra 2 hours because my dad was at work and my mom was doing her thing, and nobody could pick us up. So it was either stay there for another hour and get picked up or walk home. It was like 12, maybe 15 mile walk. So I'm like, let's walk. So we start walking and we pass an LA Boxing. We pass by, we walk in. The guy goes, what do you guys want? Like, he was straight up rude. He's like, what do you guys want? We were 16 and maybe 14 or 15, my little brother. And he goes, if you guys want something, you guys got to sign the papers. You guys, join the gym. And we're like, well, what is this place? He's like, it's a boxing gym. I'm like, what do we do here? He's like, you box. You want to spar? And I'm like, spar? He's like, yeah. And then we I remember walking up into the locker room, getting our gloves on, and they're like, just spar with anybody in the gym. And we got knocked out of us. We got destroyed. I was terrified. We walked out the gym, and I looked at my brother. My brother's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to come back here ever again. We ran home, and I went up to my dad. I was like, I don't want to do taekwondo anymore. He's like, why? I was like, I want to go join that gym. He's like, what gym? I was like, the boxing gym. We went back. I remember my brother didn't want to do nothing, but he ended up joining it so we could still be in the same place. But all he was doing was lifting weights, like nonstop lifting weights. And I kept sparring. I kept getting my ass kicked, until over time I started getting the hang of it. And one of the coaches there, Tony Kimbrough, he doesn't work there now, but back in the day he was working there. He came up to us and he was like, are you guys interested in fighting, competing? And I'm like, not really. And he's like, you should look up into MMA, look into it, see if you're interested in this and that. And everybody always talks about how the first fight they ever watched was Royce Gracie, or back in the day the VHS tapes and all that. I'm like, I wasn't even part of that era. I was like, the first fight I ever watched was GSP versus Koscheck.
Oh yeah.
That was the first fight I ever watched.
Yeah.
It wasn't no Royce Gracie or the big man beats the little man. I never even seen that. I seen GSP train hard, make sure his body was ready, diet hard, and competed against a man that trained as hard as him, knew what he was doing. It wasn't the little guy knows jiu-jitsu, the big guy doesn't. It was, he knew what he was doing, he knew what he was doing. Who's better? So that was the first thing I watched. So as soon as I watched GSP take Koscheck down and hit the jabs and slip under his punches and double leg him, I'm like, this is what I want to do. I'm like, this is what I have to be doing. So that was like the turning point, and it was all uphill from there,
Yeah, absolutely, man. You're sitting on an undefeated record now. Been having some trouble getting some fights, it seems like. I know you fought for Titan. You fought for Victory. You're scheduled to fight for CFFC in a huge regional fight last year that didn't, or earlier this year that did not come to fruition. How frustrating was that? Because Ricky Bandejas is a guy that, looking at the regional scene nationally, he's at the top of that division. So was that frustrating to have that go down in that manner? Where you were out there for the fight. It was during fight week, right?
It was during fight week. Yeah. The crazy thing is there's a lot back behind the scenes that happened, and we weren't really talking about it at the time, but I'm actually happy that you were asking about that, so now I can talk about it. But so we show up to fight week, and I think I showed up that Wednesday, and I think I had about 11 pounds, 10 pounds to cut. And we started cutting, and I remember telling the promoter, I was like, we were having a little bit of a rough cut, so I'm like, if Rick is interested, we're interested in a 140 fight if he wants, blah blah blah. I'm like, if he wants, and they're like, they said if you miss the weight, they're pulling out. So I was like, okay, I'm not missing the weight. They just gave me the key word, they're pulling out if I miss the weight. So sure. We went through hell and back, me and Bilal, hell and back to make that weight. We get down to the scale. I remember him dragging me to the scale. I got up on the scale. I was 135, 134.6. Weighed in, everything's 100%. Then they come up to me and they go, everything's good. Ricky weighed in. I was face to him that morning when they did the mock weigh-ins, or the official weigh-ins. And then they tell us to come back in 2 hours. We're gonna do a mock weigh-ins at the bar. And they line us all up. So they line up the first fight to the last fight. And I noticed I'm the only one that doesn't have nobody standing next to me. And I look left, I look right. I'm like, nobody's here. I look at the promoter. He goes, oh, he had to go do a family problem. He'll be here tomorrow. I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever. So I'm up on the scale and the belt by myself. So I'm like, okay, this is a little weird. And then the next day they call me. Actually, the funny thing is that night we were walking home, and we met up with Jared Gordon, our new roommate, and he was with a buddy. And then one of the guys was like, yeah, I heard Ricky was sick. And I didn't take it as anything. I was like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're probably just a fan. And then the next day we woke up, and Duke showed up to corner me. And the first thing he does is stand up, and I heard him talking on the phone. And funny thing is, I thought he was talking about, because Paul Felder and Al Cuenta were just fighting like 2 weeks after. Yeah. And I thought he was talking about Paul, because I heard him say Paul. So I was like, oh no, Al Cuenta must have pulled out. And then he looks at me and he goes, I'm sorry. I was like, sorry for what? And he goes, Ricky pulled out. I was like, you're joking. He's like, yeah, they said that he has something wrong with his liver or kidney or something. Like he was just really sick and he couldn't finish he couldn't make it to the fight. The weight cut messed him up. I'm like, the weight cut messed him up. I'm like, I gave him the option of not having to cut the rest of that weight so we could both be healthy, but he decided to just go through with it and destroy his body. I'm like, it's your decision, obviously, but I'm like, we could have easily had that fight if you just You know what I mean? But I feel like it was more of his coaches telling him, look, we know you're sick. If the kid's going to miss weight, we're not taking the fight. So that way we have another reason. But I'm like, it played out how it played out. Ricky was a nice guy. He messaged me on Instagram after. Like, I'm sorry. Hopefully we fight one day. I hope that fight does happen. Maybe for the Dana White Contender Series it could happen. But for now, we're just chilling. Hopefully he's healthy. He's back to training and he's good. You know, nothing serious was bad with happened to him. And you know what I mean? Just look at the future and see what's next.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you brought it up, so I'm going to mention it. The Contender Series, is that something that would be interesting to you? I know, like, there's only a couple weeks left where we don't know the matchups and stuff. I don't know how many, actual open spots there are behind the scenes either. But is that something that you were trying to get your name on for this summer?
Yeah, so I actually been trying to get my name on since last season because I was talking to first round management for a little bit, and they were kind of representing me as they were representing Bilal. And they were telling me, oh, you're going to be on this year, you're going to be on this year, and then the year ended. And I'm like, what happened? They're like, next year they're going to have it, you're going to be the first one on the list. And then we had a little bit of technical difficulties with them, so we had to cut them loose. And then now Bilal's with Ali, so I kind of talked with Ali a little bit about it. But you know how these managers are. A lot of them are, if you're not in the UFC, they're not looking to manage you unless you're in there. So it's like one of those things where I just sat back, and Ali's telling me that he's speaking to them for me, and he's got me on a list, and he'll keep me updated. But I mean, all I can do now is just fight locally. Like, I'm going to try to fight as much as I can but before the year ends, try to get as much wins as I can and just keep racking them up. I feel like I just have to make a few different adjustments in terms of, like, the politics behind this. But, you know, I'm only 23 and I'm learning with these guys coming here every day to the UFC and, like, how to see how the politics behind the scenes work, that it's not just as simple as, I want to fight that guy, let's fight. It's a lot more than that. It has to be, some shows have to have sales. Some people, you have to have more of a name. You have to have more of an image. You have to have more of a look, you know. So it all depends on that. And even your record, how does it look? Like, you have to have finishes. You have to have this. You can't have any decisions. So it's weird, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes as to why guys get chosen and things like that. But if you had your perfect, best case scenario, would you just want to get back in there as soon as a good offer comes your way, or are you eyeing, like, I want one more fight this year or something like that, like a specific month or anything that you would like to get back in there?
Honestly, best case scenario for me right now, after sitting down, reevaluating and seeing how everything played out and how, like, my career played out as an amateur, as a pro, and just taking a step back and a breather and realizing that I don't need to be rushing. I as soon as I turned pro, I was sprinting. Like, as soon as I hit the starting line, I started sprinting forward, try to get to the UFC as fast as I can. I'm like, I just need to go. I just need to get wins. That's not all that matters. But it made me realize that it's not just about that. It's about slowing down, gaining the experience, being that Khabib where he's 200 fights into Sambo, or Lomachenko where he's 200 amateur fights, or even that Shorty Torres kid where he's 25 fights as an amateur. Obviously, I didn't have that experience. I fought 8 times as an amateur and 7 times as a pro. But I want to take my time and enjoy that experience. It made me realize, kind of like, if I do get picked on a Dana White Contender Series, that means that's my story. I have to go with that story. If I don't, I'm going to try to get up to 10-0, 11-0, and have the UFC want me, not me want the UFC. That's the biggest thing. I always hear a lot of guys go, I want to be in the UFC. I'm like, but does the UFC want you in there, or are you trying to force yourself in? There's a difference between them wanting you and you forcing. You know what I mean? There's, like, one of my buddies just fought on the Chicago Bellator card, Adil. His last name is too long for me to even pronounce. But he won, and he was impressive. And the first thing he got was phone calls from Sean Shelby talking about, we need you on a Dana White Contender Series. See what I mean? And he's only 3-0. Yeah. And it was one of those, he put on such a performance, people were just impressed by it. And that's what I feel like I have to do. I have to get up to 10-0, 11-0, build up my, my record, and have a little bit of experience under my belt, and put on that one performance. Take out that vet, take out that old guy, see who's still in the game that wants me to take my, take their name from them, run through them and stuff like that. That's the most important thing right now. It's just realizing that I need to slow down, let life play out, and see what's next. All
right, last question for you. Bilal's fight this weekend. What do you think goes down?
This guy's coming in. I know we've been throwing a lot of puns with his names because his name is Chance, and we're saying he has no chance. But it's like, look, Bilal's been in a big show. This guy's coming in hot, obviously to prove himself, but he doesn't know how the lights are. Even the first time walking when Bilal fought for his UFC debut, the lights are different. If you're fighting or not fighting, it's a different stage, and it's a lot different from these local shows and circuits and stuff. So I want to see Chance put up a fight, but I know Bilal's gonna get a nice finish in this fight, try to get a nice bonus, and make the next contract have heavy numbers on it.
Awesome. Well, there he is, Askar. We're here in Utica. He's getting ready for Bilal's fight, and best of luck, my man. Thanks for taking the time out, and this is a name to watch in 2018, 2019. So Nolan King for MMA Today here in Utica, signing off.